Okay, start one more.
Gather my supplies, provide privacy, walk in, introduce myself. Hello, I'm Tim, I'll be your nurse today.
Okay.
I'm gonna wash my hands. Do you guys want me to like actually show you?
You want us?
Yes.
You want us to actually wash our hands?
Yes, I do.
Alright, then yeah, so. Because he's gonna judge us on our hand washing.
Absolutely I am. You just failed based on hand washing. Remember what the question that Abby asked? Right? Am I out to get you? Yes, I am.
I thought you were out.
No, I'm not.
You know you want us to go through my head. I can't say out loud.
Why not?
Wait.
How long do you wash your hands for?
15 seconds. Happy birthday twice.
What should the water temperature be?
10
10 What happens if you touch the screen? Or touch
The screen? Start over.
Do you get your hands wet first or second?
First.
Right. Which way do your fingertips point?
Down.
Down.
That water was red.
It's the sink here. It's getting slower by the second. It might actually stop by the time we get done.
So now
That would be good.
You guys will all fail the hand washing when you do this, and when you forget to do this.
Do you have to fold it?
No?
Yeah, okay.
I just do because I know because what happens is you have the whole sheet and then you try to throw it in the garbage and it misses. So I fold it so that I know it'll go down. Hi, Corinne, I'm Tim.
Oh wait, you gotta wash your hands.
I did. I'm your name and your birthday.
Why is there no watch?
This is me covering up your wrist
Oh,
because you're
yeah.
a patient in the hospital.
Okay. Corinne, 12892.
Okay.
I forgot for a second, sorry.
Good. Can you tell me where we're at?
We're in Henderson Hall
And why are we here?
to do cardiovascular assessment.
Okay, I'm gonna start off by asking you just some questions. Okay. Do you have you or your family? When I discuss your family, I mean you, your siblings, your children, your parents, your grandparents. Have any history or have you heard the term congestive heart failure?
Mm-hmm.
The answer for all your peers
No.
is no.
Sorry.
You have
No.
a history of coronary artery disease?
No.
No. Have you ever had periods where you got lightheaded, passed out? Some
No.
people refer to it as syncope.
No.
No. Just any 3 questions you'll have. I really care what they are. Okay, so I'm just gonna start off by looking at you. This is my instructor, Tim. I'll be explaining some things to him, so everyone knows what's going on. So I noticed that she doesn't have any cyanosis or bluing of circummoral, of core. I can't actually see that, but we're gonna say that, right? And I don't see any peripheral cyanosis going on with her. This is what you do in real life, you look around. All right, I'm gonna start off by just feeling some things now that I've inspected. I would remove the fingernail polish. Guys, in an emergency situation, you're not like, oh, hey, I know you're turning blue here. Let me go get some fingernail polish remover. You would just flip over the finger and do this. And Corinne's a great example because she's red. It's not as good as using the fingernails or the nail beds. And then I have to do both hands and both
Sorry, my
feet.
toes are bruised.
That's all right. I've been a nurse for a long time. Do you know where my hands have been? That's why.
People's
That's
butts?
everywhere. That's why when they said your videos are not appropriate, I'm like, oh my god, you have no idea what I do. Okay, so I don't notice any cyanosis. Cap refill is less than 3 seconds. Can you go like this for me? There's no presence of clubbing. At that point, I would assume that Tim would ask me what causes clubbing, and I would say, well, COPD results in diffusion problems, resulting in hypoxemia, resulting in hypoxia, resulting in angiogenesis, and therefore the nails have to move out of the way for the new capillaries. Okay. I notice that she's breathing normal. There doesn't be any accessory muscles being used. Set her back to 30 degrees. Good. And to look that way. I don't see any jugular vein distension. Look this way. I don't see any jugular vein distension on this side. I will go ahead and listen to her carotid arteries in a little bit. I'm doing cardiovascular, peripheral vascular.
They're like mixed though.
Yeah.
There
Some of
are
the things
some
you're-
things are redundant.
okay, yeah.
Because like clubbing is both respiratory and
Yeah.
cardiovascular. Because if you had a cardiopulmonary issue, you would have clubbing. That fits for both. All right, you guys don't actually ever put your stethoscopes in your ears. I can't hear what you're hearing anyways. Turn that way. Hold your breath. Breathe. Turn your head towards me. Hold your breath. What happens if she doesn't hold her breath? I hear bronchial sounds, right? I don't want to hear bronchial sounds. Breathe. Okay, I don't hear any bruise, but if I did, I would palpate for a thrill. If I was palpating for a thrill, I'd do one side at a time, right? Because we don't want to cause that vasovagal response that Laura talked about. Right. All right. I'm gonna go ahead and listen to her heart sounds. I'm gonna just start off by telling you, Tim, the landmarks. I feel like I'm talking like LeBron James, like the third person here. The second is it okay if I touch?
Yeah.
The second intercostal space, just lateral to the sternal border on the right, is the aortic. The second intercostal space, just lateral to the sternal border on the left, is the pulmonic. The tricuspid valve can be found in the third to fourth intercostal space on either side of the sternum or on top of the xiphoid process, which I would probably listen for a female. And then, if you find the midclavicular line, go down, just slightly lateral, and the fifth intercostal space is the apical pulse, the PMI, the mitral valve, the bicuspid valve, and the apex of the heart. And this is where I will listen for to take an apical pulse. I'm going to listen to each of those spots for 3 or 4 beats, starting off with my diaphragm, and this is for the normal heart sounds. So lub dub, lub dub, lub dub, lub dub. Repeat there, and you guys can literally do this. Here. It's your brush, you can just however you want. Right. If you have to displace a person's breath rhythm, use the back of your hand. Then I repeat all those places with the bell, listening for murmurs. You can expect that if you pull this, I'm going to ask you the difference between a murmur and a bruit. And your answer is going to be they are the same thing. They're both turbulent blood flow, but it's what causes the turbulent blood flow. If it's in the carotid arteries, it would be narrowing. If it was in the heart, it would be the valves. If it was the abdominal aorta, which we're going to do in a little bit, it's ballooning. What's wrong? Did I say something wrong?
No, you're good.
Okay. So this in all the spots. Then I'm going to lay her flat. Bend your feet up. Keep them up. I'll be looking at her abdomen. I know it's part of the abdominal assessment, but this is the triple A, which is part of the cardiovascular system, so it goes into both. We would, you know, in real life, pull up her shirt. We're not going to do that here. And we're going to look just above her umbilicus to see if we see any visible pulsations, right? Regardless, we're going to go ahead and auscultate just above the umbilicus. And we're listening for a bruit. So we can have narrowing up there, usually ballooning here. Okay. If I heard a bruit, I would palpate. Now, with Corinne being a previous athlete and being slender, we would expect that we see some normal pulsation with someone of her size. Okay. I'm trying to think what else was on your guys' list. The difference between systole and you can sit up if you like.
Did you use the bell?
I did.
The bell.
Yeah, the bell for B. B for bruit. Bell and bruit are both B's.
You listen for a bruit in the jugular vein
No, in the carotid artery.
and the carotid.
You look for jugular vein distension, right? What are some causes of jugular vein distension? They're cardiac related. Congestive heart failure, right-sided, hypertension, or hypervolemia. Right, those are all the things that cause jugular vein distension. And then with the carotid arteries, which it's located in a very similar spot, but we're looking for blood flow to the brain. Okay, and then we could have narrowing due to atherosclerosis or arteriosclerosis. So I think on your sheet it says differentiate between systole and diastole. Systole is when the ventricles are contracting, specifically the left ventricle. Diastole is when the ventricles are relaxing, specifically the left ventricle. And I care mostly about the left ventricle because that's what's perfusing to the body. A normal blood pressure is 120/80. Your systolic being the 120. It's less than 120 over less than 80. And then the normal pulse pressure, the difference between systolic and diastolic is 40. The range is 30 to 50, and all you do is take 120 minus 80. So that's the normal systole and diastole. You have S1 and S2. That's your lub and your dub. S1 are your semilunar valves, right? Your
Atrioventricular.
Oh, okay, I'm saying it backwards. Thank you. So S1 is your AV valves. Oh, I get up to, I only have to get 90%. S2 is your semilunar valves, right? Closing. If there was an S3 or S4, that would be an added heart sound, usually to a valve not closing properly, and it can be caused, and S3 is commonly caused by congestive heart failure or the onset of congestive heart failure, and an S4 is caused by a new myocardial infarction or heart attack. I would check for edema with peripheral vascular. So we're going to check most distal. That's pretty hard, right?
Yeah.
No edema present. If it was bilateral, I would think congestive heart failure or renal failure. If it was unilateral, I would think acute injury or DVT. If there was edema present, I could go and measure her calves to see they're the same size to see if it's unilateral or bilateral. And congestive heart failure is common in right-sided, edema is common, peripheral edema is common in right-sided heart failure. If she had crackles in her lungs, which is part of the respiratory assessment, it would be left-sided heart failure. Toes, look. I don't see any varicose veins. I don't see any spider veins. Related to the peripheral vascular assessment.
Sorry, breathing.
Pulse What? Any?
I'm not, I'm working on it.
Oh, sorry.
Got to fill for temperature for peripheral vascular disease, symmetrical temperatures in the legs. Nice in your arms.
Check that everywhere.
Just the extremities. Alright. And check to see if we have symmetrical pulses, radial. Plus twos, right? And then I could do dorsalis penis. Oh, you have good dorsalis penis pulses. That's unusual. Okay. Plus twos. This is another place where people will fail. They go to for the posterior tibialis and they go on the outside of the foot.
Can
Like,
you even feel anything?
what's that?
Can you even feel?
Yeah, she's +1, +1.
No, on the outside.
No, you can't, but I'll have students like forever, oh, they're +2. I'm like, oh, are they?
Can
Like,
you fail
show
them
me.
for that?
Right? Don't lie to me. Just say I forget, I don't know, right? Don't say it's +2, because then I'm like, not only do you not know how to do the assessment, you literally just lied to my face. And that makes me question your integrity moving through our program. That's more concerning than you saying, Tim, I can't fill it. Okay, you can't fill it because you're on the wrong side. Try on the other side. I'll give you the hint, okay?
So do you want to do the radial and the dorsal and the posterior? Do you
Well,
want
if
to
you
do
do the
radial?
most distal pulses
No.
and they're present, then you know that every other pulse site is present, so you can rule that out. I think it also says brachial in there, if I'm not, so, I was like, well, that's a nice tattoo.
Oh, thank you.
I like the lavender, or purple.
Yeah,
It's Allison's favorite color.
it's my favorite color.
Your brachial pulse is medial to the bicep tendon. Do this one here. All right. Put this back to my ears. I would listen to her apical.
Can we move it?
No,
Oh, okay.
Move it. Okay, and I need to listen and palpate at the same time. Every time I hear lub dub, I would expect to feel one pulsation. And I would listen for a full minute, and the normal would be no pulse deficit. They are exactly the same. You cannot listen and then palpate, because within that minute, the heart rate could have gone from 68 apically to 60, and I would say there's a pulse deficit of 8, and that's not true at all. Also, I would expect, if I asked the question, if you found a pulse deficit, which one would be faster, the apical or the radial? And hopefully everyone can critically think through that. What would be faster? It always has to be the apical. You cannot have a peripheral pulse without the heart beating. So if you find a patient that has a radial pulse faster than their apical pulse, know that you did something wrong. Like, that's not possible. Is taking low blood pressure on there also? Okay, I think that might be it. I think- Oh, Allen test, okay. Hands out, thanks. Okay. Hand open and close. Just this one, lay that one out so I can do the baseline. And stop, oh, we actually did this one on you in class, didn't we?
You did.
Good, she has good blood flow radially. Open and close. And good on the ulnar side. And I wouldn't not necessarily do that as part of my normal cardiovascular assessment, but I want you guys to know to do that, because in case your respiratory therapist is gonna come do ABGs on you, because they may not check that. So when you call them, hey, come up, can you give me a stat ABGs, walk in and do the Allen test to make sure that if there's an issue, you can give a heads up to them. So, do I pass?
No.
Think
I
about
don't
it.
know, did you?
Are you more concerned with one artery over the other when you do that, or is it just both?
No, well, so they're gonna draw, where are they gonna do the ABG at? Radial or ulnar side? They're gonna do it on the radial side. They do on, yeah, yeah, so they do it on the radial side, so we wanna make sure that the ulnar pulse is able to perfuse to the hand. So I'm probably more concerned that we have a good ulnar blood supply. Cause it'd be really, the ulnar the ulnar artery is smaller than the radial, so it's harder to hit with the needle. Abby, which other one?
Hmm?
Which other one do you want me to do?
Respiratory.
Oh, yeah.